Hello everyone, my name is Jacqueline Nhundie and I am a recent grad from VCU and I'm also a member of the PACE Center with the Campus Ministries. I've been a part of the PACE Center for about a year now and it's been an amazing opportunity to be able to work with Katie, and she's asked me if I could, if I wanted to, if I could respond to the question of how did the death of George Floyd affect me personally, right? Now, I wish this was a simpler question. I wish I could just give a direct and straight response, but I unfortunately cannot. And I guess this is why we're having this conversation, right? It's not quite as simple as it seems. Now, I can only speak from my own experience. I can't really speak for everybody else's experience. But for me personally, I took it really, really hard when I first heard about it and I read about it before I even ever saw the video. When my phone notified me of the news, because I get the news on my phone on a regular basis, when my phone notified me that another black man had been killed by the police, my initial reaction was, is it my dad? Is it my brothers? I have 4 brothers and a black father, right? And every time a black man, when I see the headline that a black man has just been killed by the police, my initial reaction is to call every man in my family and make sure it's not them, right? And I think it was not just his death. It's because within the weeks leading to his death, black people were just being killed back to back with no justice. But there's something about watching a man being murdered on the streets like a cow, about to be sacrificed. There's something about watching human life leaving somebody's body that takes you to like a whole nother, like, it's overwhelming, right? Because usually you see, you don't sit there and listen to somebody cry out for their lives. Usually you don't look into somebody's eyes and see, you can slowly see the man dying, right? Him dying, and you can see him dying, right? And so there's something about watching that just made me deflate, right? I am usually someone who's full of like life, and this isn't an issue that we've been dealing with that's just recent, right? This is something that's been happening to us for years and years and years and years. And for me personally, it's something that's been happening from the day that I was born. This is something that I've had to experience in my own personal life with the people that I love. And so when George Floyd was murdered and when he was killed, I lost it, right? I could not understand. I could not fathom. And my initial reaction, I was in fear. I was really scared because if, it's broad daylight. People are outside. People are watching. If a white man can kill you and murder you like an animal in the middle of broad daylight, and the world is just okay with it, the system is okay with it, they're not arresting, they're not charging, no one is doing anything about it, they're just watching him die. If when I saw that happening, my initial reaction was, that could be my dad, that could be my brothers, right? And I became so overwhelmed with emotions, and I became so terrified because it's no longer a case of if this happens to them, right? It's now a case of when it's going to happen to them, right? And so I could not fathom or understand. I called my brother, right? When it initially happened, I called every single one of my brothers to check in on them. And one of them said to me, he said, He said, Jackie, it's okay, right? It's the world we live in. This has been our life since we've ever known it. It's going to happen, and it is what it is, and they don't care about us. And that broke my heart to think that it's become so normalized to take black men's lives that my brother, who's still alive, that even though it has not yet happened to him, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and yet if it's, you know, like, it breaks me to think that even though they're still breathing, they're still alive, that even though it's not happened to them, they've accepted the fact that they're gonna die, and it's most likely going to be at the hands of a white cop or just a white man in general, right? And for me, that's really frustrating. It's really heartbreaking, because I cannot fathom or begin to understand why them looking like the way they are, the way that God has created them to look. There's no difference between me and the next white person. The only difference is the amount of melanin in my skin. Why does the color of our skin, you know, why is that a threat, right? That's something that I couldn't understand, and I couldn't hope. Like, I couldn't help, but everything that's happened thus far after seeing that video kind of just ran through my mind, and I could not find peace in my heart. I couldn't sleep. I was all over the place, right? So when I spoke to my brother, I started to think about every experience that I've had with the police, by myself and with my brothers. And I remembered an instance when previously a guy I used to date, a black man, we were driving from my brother's house to my dad's house. It was nighttime, right? And we got in the car. It's literally a 5-minute drive. We made our turn, and then the cops stopped us, right? I was in the passenger seat. Soon as we got stopped, and he saw the policeman pull up and come up to us. He froze. This was a 25-year-old man, mind you, full of life, just kind and open and giddy all the time, just generally just a good person. There was nothing threatening about him. But to watch somebody I had known for so long, somebody who was full of so much like strength and courage and life, he literally deflated. When I said he deflated and froze, he froze like a 5-year-old. A grown man froze like a 5-year-old in fear, because we were being pulled over by a policeman, and because he was scared for his life. And the worst part about it is that when we first got stopped, I was laying down in the seat, so the policeman did not see me when he originally stopped us. It wasn't until he started walking to my side of the window, because it was nighttime, to speak to us, that I sat up straight. So then he noticed that I was there. He asked us if we knew why he stopped us, and we said no. And then he told us that he stopped us because our tail lights were out. Now, he eventually lets us go with the warning. We get home. We checked the taillights, and the taillights were just fine. There was nothing wrong with the taillights. For that car, the taillights and everything was working just fine. The only reason that policeman stopped us, he was racially profiling the man that I was with. Not because he had done anything wrong, not because there was anything wrong with the car, but simply because he looked the way that he looked. Another time, so my brother, the house that I'm currently in, is in a really nice neighborhood in Hampton, Virginia. He's a 25-year-old male at the time when he first purchased his house, right? And it's a nice house. It's a really nice house in a really, really nice neighborhood. He was minding his business, you know, going around, checking things around the house, on the front, you know, making sure that everything was okay, that his yard was good. And his white neighbors called the police on him. They called the police on him because he's a black man in this neighborhood, And they didn't believe that the house was his. And so the police came, and he had to bring his mortgage papers. He had to identify himself and prove that this was his house and that he's not trying to break in or rob the house. This didn't happen once. It happened 2 times. They called the police on him 2 times. Not because he went to them or did anything, but simply because he was a black man. Not for any other reason. They called the police because he was black. And I think to myself, what if he didn't have his papers? What if he didn't have his ID? What would have happened? My younger brother, he's 18 years old. He gets stopped all the time for no reason. He's racially profiled all the time for no reason, right? And my story is a little bit different because I'm in this country as a refugee immigrant. I was born and raised in a refugee camp on the east coast of Africa. My parents are survivors of the Rwandan genocide, you know? So the reason for us being here in the first place, this was supposed to be our new home. This was supposed to be a place of refuge. The wars, the civil wars and the genocides and all of those things that my parents survived, those were things, the divisions, the racial division and ethnic divisions, and then all the looting and the things that happened in the past in my home country, in Tanzania, in Burundi, in Rwanda, in Congo, all those areas. It was because Western white people came down into our countries. They created these divisions, started wars, and then created all this mess, which it ended up with me and my family with a lot of people dying. Genocides have happened because of things that were originally caused by white people who have come into our countries, who have created divisions and started unraveling people in countries and lands so that they could exploit us for our resources. And so they've come in, right? And they've taken everything we've had. They've started wars and we've become displaced and we end up in refugee camps because of them, right? And then we're in these refugee camps, and then they come to so-called save us from the camps that we ended up in because of problems that they started. They bring us into this country, gives us citizenship, and we're here thinking, this is going to be our new home. There's going to be peace here. You know, we're not going to die for those reasons, you know. This is supposed to be our refuge. But how can this be a refuge if I cannot step outside of my door and come back home? You know, how can this be home when we're still dealing with the same issues? I left a country to, like, my biggest fear is that my life, my father's life, my mother's life, my sisters or my brothers or my uncles, you know, my biggest fear is that my parents have survived all of these wars and genocides that were caused by white people, right? And come here only to eventually be killed and murdered again by the same people that originally caused that issue. The same people that are the reasons why we're even here in the first place, you know? That's my biggest fear. And so when George Floyd got killed, when he was murdered, it wasn't just that he got murdered and that's what, you know, this is my everyday life. Every time I see a news notification, my heart jumps because my poor father, who barely speaks any English, could be mistaken because he just have a naturally like a very vibrant, like his energy, the way he talks, he has a very strong voice and he has a very strong accent and he can barely get words out. And so it's frustrating for him to communicate. So I wonder, like, it makes me think that one day my poor dad, who from the age of 12 has been on his own. From when he was 7, he was forced out of his home countries because of wars and all of these things. Has been a refugee his entire life. That one day, I'm scared that one day, some cop, some white cop might kill him or shoot him. Because they might mistake his accent or his inability to understand what they're saying to him for aggression, and they might kill him. What is the point of going through all of that just to come here and just die? Not just die from sickness or from a car accident, but to die at the hands of the same man that caused you to lose your home, you know? So for me, the question of how has George Floyd impacted me personally, it's not just George Floyd. It's Breonna Taylor. It's all of these other black people. It's the man who got killed in his own house eating ice cream. It's everything that I've experienced since I got into this country. It's everything that I've experienced since I was first born in a refugee camp in Rukore in Tanzania, you know? It's scary. It's very scary. And we, you know, it's become so normalized here. People getting murdered and killed by cops has become so normalized. And the system is so messed up because there is no support. There's no justice, you know. And I think what hurt me the most is that nobody has been listening. People have been protesting. Nobody peacefully protesting, and no one's been listening. Nobody's hearing, you know, nobody's educating themselves. Nobody is taking the steps that they need to take. The people in power could care less about our lives, right? And so when I go on my social media page and I see, you know, white folks condemning the looting and the rioting, you know, how long are people going to peacefully beg for the life that God freely gave them, you know? How they've marched peacefully, they've screamed, you know? How can you be, if that was your brother, if that was your sister, if that was your mother, and they got murdered the same way that Diamond got murdered on the streets, you know? You too will be breaking down and burning down buildings because you want to be heard. You want change to be made. It's not, you know, before you condemn the looting, condemn the killing, you know? It shows how little it shows how little our lives are valued, right? It shows how little people care about our lives. And for you to be upset that people are looting and rioting, people would not be looting and rioting if they were given the same rights as their next door white neighbor, right? If they were treated the same way as their next door white neighbor. It blows my mind how a white young man can murder down and gun down a church full of people, yet they can drive him to a fast food restaurant and get him food and arrest him in peace. But you can't peacefully arrest a man who didn't do anything wrong, who in fact wasn't even committing a crime to begin with, simply because he looks the way that he does. Now, I have so much to say. There's so much, I can go on and on and on and on and on about this, right? But I guess to I know the video is long, to close it down, this is my life, right? This is a fight that I have to battle every single day. I have to fight, and as a black woman, it's even a whole nother level because I'm a refugee, I'm an immigrant, right? Not only do I have to worry about issues of this country and ethnic issues here and race issues here, I also have to worry about the things that are happening back in my homeland. And I'm also a student, so when all of this is going on and we're out here protesting and whatnot, I'm also in school, right? I'm also at the same time trying to get my education, and it's hard to focus on my education when, you know, I shouldn't have to choose to fight for my life or get an education. I cannot focus. I can't get things done. You know, I should be able, like any other kid of any other race, if I have schoolwork to do, to be able to focus on that schoolwork without, you know, feeling guilty for not being out there fighting for my people as well. I shouldn't have to choose between getting an education and fighting for my life, because that's a right. That's a God-given right that God gave me. I had no choice. I had no decision in what I was going to look like. I had no choice. God created me and saw that I was fit to look the way that I look, and saw that my skin was fit to look the way that it looks. And so for a man to make themselves God, to make themselves the judge and the executioner and the jury over my life has really made it difficult for me to be able to live. I cannot go to sleep in peace, you know. I cannot I cannot drive my car without constantly looking around to make sure I'm not being followed, you know. I cannot go out in public and be 100% myself because I might offend a white person. It's not a simple answer. It's not a simple response. But I so wish that people listened more. I wish that people did more. I wish that people educated more. And I don't understand where this fear is coming from. And I don't understand what we did, because this is from the beginning of time. I don't know. I don't understand what we did to deserve this treatment. I don't understand who made white people God. Like who made you God? That you can make that decision over someone else's life, when the God that has created this person has said so himself that you are worthy of life. You know? And so I have so much to say, but I know I cannot say it all in one video. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you all for listening, for hearing me, and thank you for hearing my side and my story. And I hope that what I've said has somehow, you know, given you a little bit of perspective, you know. So thank you. Peace and blessings, and I hope you all have a great day.